Welcome to Divorcing Strong, the podcast that pulls no punches when it comes to divorce. I'm Becky Sampson, better known as Bulldog Becky Brockovich, and I'm here to give you the straight talk, the strategies, and the subpoena secrets you won't hear anywhere else. With expert guests and proven advice, you'll learn your rights, your options, and gain your power that encourages a fair and equitable outcome. Divorce doesn't have to break you. It can build you. Let's get to it. Okay. Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Divorcing Strong Man. We're moving quickly. So if you can't keep up, don't worry. It's all on YouTube at Divorcing Strong with Becky Sampson. And I have been having such an interesting time and a fun time getting to know all these amazing people across the country who serve people going through divorce. If you don't know why you're here or what you're listening to, this whole podcast, all of these experts coming together are here to support you with information and with knowledge to help you come through your divorce strong. And one of the things I love most is advocacy. And today's guest is all about that. And you're going to hear, she's a Texas attorney, and I'll read her little bio here in a second. But I met her a few months ago, super impressed with the work that she's doing and grateful for her heart and her commitment to people going through this difficult time. Just a couple reminders, if you would like to like and subscribe to the channel, we would love to. Also make sure you share it with other people who are going through the divorce that may need the help and resources available. Also, if you'd like, you can download the 100 divorce terms. Let me tell you, if you are just beginning, get going, or if you know someone that's going through a divorce, as long as they can educate themselves on the actual legal terms, you're going to be way ahead of the game when it comes to working with an attorney or if you're representing yourself. So thank you guys. We're excited about that. So without further ado, let me just introduce to you who we're going to be having on the show today. Attorney Tess House is the founder and managing attorney of Tess House Law. It's a San Antonio-based firm built around the simple but powerful mission to speak to those who cannot speak for themselves. Her team helps clients take back their power in some of the most high-stake moments of their lives, from family law battles to government outreach. On the family law side, Tess House Law represents parents and children in divorce, custody, child support, visitation, CPS cases, adoptions, protection orders, and termination of parental rights. On the federal level, the firm represents victims in civil rights cases, giving a legal voice to people whose constitutional rights have been violated. So known as her direct advocacy and deep empathy, Tess understands that no two cases feel the same to the people living them. Her priority is to listen, earn her clients' trust, and then tell their story in a way that the courts value and understand. She is not just moving paperwork. She is helping clients fight for safety, stability, and a new version of happily ever after. So through Tess House Law, Tess helps clients in Texas state the next chapter of their lives in the clarity, strategy, and a legal team ready to fight for them, which I also say advocate. So with that intro, I'd like to welcome Tess to the show.
Thank you so much, Becky. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know you have a lot on your plate, and thank you so much for taking time today. I told you before this started, I hope that this is just kind of a time of Zen where you get to just shine and remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, because sometimes I know the stress can be really hard as an attorney and representing so many people. So thank you again for joining us. So I love to start these shows off with asking the question, what got you into this space and being an attorney and then advocating for people, and what makes you so passionate about the work that you do?
Sure. I will say one of the most pivotal moments in my life happened to deal with my first official career out of school. I served the community as a school teacher. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade levels, depending on whatever the assignment asked for. And at that time, I remember at the end of one of those school days, I found a kid hiding in my classroom. So all of the other children, they had been dismissed, were on their school buses or parent pickup. But there was one child hiding under a desk in a dark classroom. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, at that time, I came to the knowledge that Child Protective Services was downstairs waiting to take him. And he was afraid of being turned over to them and did not want to go.
Yeah.
He did not want to leave his placement. He was with a family member at the time. He had been living with this family member who happened to be living in the neighborhood zoned where that school was located, but having to navigate such a tragic moment in his life. And also became a tragic moment in my life and for those of his classmates, because he was a pillar of the community. I will say he was a great addition to a classroom, never had any problems, very quiet spirit, extremely smart. There was no indication of child abuse or neglect when he walked into my classroom. So to go from being a shining light, in order and seeing him shudder in terror was a juxtaposition that I had to deal with. And at that moment, when I escorted him downstairs and asked Child Protective Services exactly like what I could do to assist, to provide them information on his care while he was in my care at school, and for them not to provide information, it was at that moment I knew that I never wanted to feel powerless ever again. Right? Because I was a school teacher. I wasn't an attorney. I didn't have any legal authority, according to Child Protective Services, to know any information as to why I was losing a student. And so, that relationship being severed was pivotal in me deciding that I just needed to come on the other side of the law and take that power back so that I could advocate for children in ways that I just couldn't as a school teacher.
I can only imagine, since that experience that you had that day is only gotten worse, right, in the system. And I actually talked to a teacher that had the similar experience. It's like, what do I do? How do I protect these kids, and how do I get into a place of power? And that's what I was going to say, is if somebody's in that kind of situation, what are the first steps, like dealing with, first of all, who is CPS and what is the role of a CPS? And now that you're an attorney, where do you step in?
Sure. So Child Protective Services is an arm of the state. In the state of Texas, it's called the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, also known as CPS. And depending on what state that you're in, you'll have different child welfare agencies that are generally arms of the state that go in and intervene on protection of children when there have been allegations of child abuse or child neglect, right? And so, listen, and some people, they're the boogeyman, right? They're the boogeyman when you're on the side of being accused of something, right? However, when they're going in and advocating on behalf of the best interests of the children and for their safety and welfare and protection, then they're the guardians. So it depends. I think people find themselves depending on what side of an investigation they're on. Either they're bystanders looking in, or they are the ones being accused of doing something. That role changes, and the role that they play in the community changes depending on the vantage point. Now that I am on the other side, right, I am an actual bona fide attorney. I advocate on behalf of kids in different roles. I play different roles when it comes to us Child Protective Service litigation. That includes taking the roles of representing children themselves.
So you are a guardian ad litem?
I have served as a guardian ad litem, attorney ad litem. However, I've also served as advocates of respondent parents that have felt as if there is a system built against them, and they just want a way to either rehabilitate themselves from a bad circumstance into a changed position, or people have been wrongfully accused and they're looking for a defense in order to explain a circumstance or situation or provide further evidence that shows, that they haven't been guilty of child abuse or neglect. And so I've served in several of those capacities.
Well, and that's a tough space to be in. And I don't mean to get too ahead of what you were saying, but that was kind of a pivotal moment for you to be like, look, I want to be a part of a system that's part of the solution, not the problem. Right. And I mean, obviously you went to law school, and then is that what you started your law in was children, and then kind of branched out to do divorce and other cases?
No, actually, I went to law school saying I'm going to be an employment lawyer because I grew up watching a television show called Soul Food. And I remember there was a lawyer on that show. She was an employment lawyer. I had it in my mind. I wanted to advocate for the rights of employees. However, as soon as I graduated from law school, I hung up my own shingle, decided I wanted to do my own thing, because in law school, they tell you, make good grades, interview with top firms. And as I sat there interviewing with top firms, I was thinking, like, I don't identify with whatever this mission is, like whatever they were going for or presenting to me. I didn't understand where I fit in to their particular industry or their model or institution. So I decided just to create something on my own. My first client was referred to me by a coworker. It was a family law case. I was scared because I had never filed a case. I had never worked on a family law case. I didn't know how to file an answer. And I remember just sitting there, wow, like I have been, because in law, we learn the practice of law, right?
Right.
Learn about it, but we're not practicing law. So it's much different on the other side of taking the bar. But my first case came in, it was a custody case where parents were fighting over primary possession of a child. And it turned out that while I was only a couple months licensed, my opposing counsel was board certified and extremely experienced.
Oh my gosh.
We're talking about polar opposite spectrums of experience on a what turned into a high conflict custody case where I went through the breadth of discovery, depositions, 11 hours of mediation right before we were set to do a jury trial. Because in the state of Texas, depending on what the circumstance is, the subject matter, you're entitled to a jury trial in these cases. And so,
yeah, and by the way, welcome to family law.
Let me tell you, I felt like I was in a sorority being hazed. And at that point, I was like, you know what? There's not much more than I can go through.
Right.
Law. So I was like, you're stuck with me because I love what we do. I love this mission. And that family law is something that you have to love. Because if you talk to lawyers and they say, what is one field of law that you would not want to do? Most non-family law attorneys say it's family law. They say, I wouldn't want to touch that with a 12-foot pole. It's too emotional, right? It's too the topics that you talk about are too palpable in order for it to be worth it to them. So it's nothing you can fake. You have to be passionate about this to have longevity in what you do. So yeah, I enjoy it.
Well, and it's funny because the people that I've had on the show, and I've interviewed quite a few attorneys from different states. It's been interesting because they all say, look, I kind of just fell into family law. It wasn't something and the same thing with divorce space. I mean, the people that are the divorce coaches, most of them have been through very difficult times. And so they want to give back. And so it's the same thing with family law. It's kind of a very special, you have to have something in your heart that drives you and that makes you feel like you're making a difference to that. And it sounds like, I mean, the advocacy part of your work is really giving people a voice through the court system. And you talk a lot about kind of the story and preserving your story through the courts. Tell us a little bit about that, and how do you tell the story correctly so that you can get a good result?
Right. So I tell clients, court is not about the truth. So a lot of times when clients come to our firm, they're saying, I'm looking for someone that's going to tell my side of the story. And I have to explain to them that court is about what you can prove. It's not really about the truth. And sometimes the hard part is your truth may not have evidence, right? It's the conversations that you have at night with your spouse when the camera's off.
Yeah.
It's the conversations that erupt into some tumultuous type event at a dinner table when there's no camera on and there's no one recording, and it's your side versus the other. There are times when kids are sitting in their bedroom and parents think that they're sleeping. And while the parents are arguing or there are situations of domestic violence, there's a child
Yep.
where there's no camera in the room shuddering because they hear a clash or they hear the sounds of something that is just disturbing that no child should ever have to listen to, right? And
Yeah.
so it's something to be able to go into a courtroom and explain this to the judiciary exactly why intervention is necessary, why these people, these parties need a blueprint for success, why maybe services are necessary in order to rehabilitate these litigants, or even just provide them tools so that they have more tools in their toolkit and
Yeah.
techniques to deal with high conflict parenting or just co-parenting, period, right? And so it's just wow, it's an amazing opportunity to look at very complicated situations and try to just clean it up to make sense of it, but to provide a blueprint for success.
Yeah, I agree. I think people think that I think oftentimes people think that when they go in the court that the judge will know everything about their case, right? And will make the right decision and knows about everybody, but they don't. So, I mean, that's kind of a question I have for you. So, I mean, if to make sure that their story is told accurately, I mean, what are the best ways for someone to document their situation so that the court takes them seriously?
Right, absolutely. Well, let me tell you what it isn't, Becky. It isn't pulling out a camera
Yeah.
when your ex is coming to pick up the child, right? That's what it isn't. What it is creating a journal and a log
Yep.
of interactions that you have. That would be more appropriate, right? Because sometimes our memories fault us.
Mm-hmm.
And while the image is vivid when it happens, sometimes, especially when it happens so consistently, or if it happens intermittently, we forget time, date, scopes, the type of behaviors that were displayed on that particular date and time. So keeping a journal and a log of incidents helps your attorney to defend you in court because we're not there. Clients love to say, I'm telling the truth. Attorney
Yeah.
House, you know me. I know I'm telling the truth. And I'm like, I hear you, but guess what they're going to say on the other side? I'm telling the truth too.
Well, and I always say people, the person who's the better at documenting, you're going to do way better in court. Like I will tell you, Tess, I mean, I had a court case this last couple of years and it was dealing with a child. And I ended up doing a spreadsheet. So every single day, it was a lot of work, but I'm really one of those people that document. I'm super good that way. But it was every single night I would get into that spreadsheet and write what happened that day. And the good, bad, and the ugly, the guardian ad litem had it. We had it. Our attorney had it. They all had access to it. So they could, and even the counselor, so that she could get in there and see what was going on with this child. And I mean, sometimes you think maybe that's a little too over the top, and it may be, but you can always go back and minimize it. You can never maximize it because your memory just goes away. You don't know, you can't remember dates sometimes. And the courts really do appreciate that documentation.
They do. And something to consider is that if you don't document, you have to consider who on the other side is.
Right.
It might not be the most obvious person. People believe that sometimes it's the other parent, right? In a high conflict custody case that's doing the documenting, it might not be. It may be that co-parent's new spouse. It might even be the grandmother on the other side who's always asking to see their grandbabies, who's never been a problem ever since then. And you just never know who's doing the documenting. So you should do it yourself, because there's another version of the story to tell, and you're in the best position to do so, better than your lawyer.
Right. How do you kind of, I should say, do you like taking on cases that are high conflict?
I like taking on cases, period, where people need a sense of peace. I love welcoming people to I call it their new happily ever after,
Yes.
whatever that looks like for them. But we have to approach this with the understanding that you get one life. There's no do-overs in life. So if you choose a path where it's miserable, where it's high conflict, where it becomes ingrained in pettiness, think about how much you internalize this, and this becomes part of your life. We get the opportunity to choose different. We can control ourselves. What we cannot control is we cannot control a spouse. We can't control an ex-spouse. We can't control a co-parent. We can't control any people that are, I would believe, to be the village, right? Those stakeholders in your child's life. But we can control what we do, how we process things, and how we respond to things that happen to us. So absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that like, how do you guide clients through cases where there's the other side determines to escalate things, right? Because it can get really out of control. And like, how do you guide them to protect their credibility?
Sure. It's just like playing poker.
Yeah.
It really is like playing poker. You have to be so unbothered in situations that try you to the point where you want to respond. Knowing it's not only for the sake of yourself, but knowing that your response also affects the circumstance and the environment of any children that may be around, or any collaterals that may be around. Yeah, it's like playing poker.
Yeah, I did a podcast the other day where we talked about, divorce is a game. And it's interesting because you really kind of need to know, and especially if you're going to be in the court system, you need to know what the rules of the game is, or the rules of the game are, or else you're going to get eaten alive. It's tough. When you take on a case, what is probably one of the first things that you recommend to your client about how to handle their case, especially if they're dealing, I mean, I've had people on this podcast, but it's a lot about collaboration, but when it's not collaborative and you're like sinking and you've got things that are being hidden, you don't know about stuff. They don't want to do the parent stuff. They're playing all these games. Like what's your advice to them? What's one of the first things that you tell them to do?
First, I tell them to not check out. This is a time for them to check in. So a lot of times people have access that they didn't even know they had access to, right? And this could be joint bank accounts that they have access to, but because they never played the role of the main financial decision maker, they've never accessed that account, right? It doesn't mean they don't have the ability to, but in the role that they took on in the relationship, they just never did. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times it's taking a deep introspection and a deep look at what is available to you, that even though your partner may be secreting this, you might already have access to it. You just haven't tried or attempted to because you didn't realize, right? So it's reminding them of the access that they already have within their arsenal, to help them and advocate for them in their case, right?
Before they get shut out.
Before they get shut out. Absolutely. But also, I mean, there's ways, if it's within the purview of the court and the laws, and through the process of discovery, where we have written responses to things, we ask them to turn over bank accounts, turn over your cell phone records, turn over those credit cards, because I want to know on July 15th, when you said that you were going out of town in Orlando, Florida, somehow there's this, like lingerie item on your credit card in California, so like explain to me. And so those statements tell a story, whether or not a party wants to admit it or not. And a lot of people, they're not considering litigation when they are playing games, committing fraud, adultery, infidelity during a marriage. they're thinking about, well, how do I get away with this? Oh, my spouse doesn't check this card. This account is in my name alone. No one will ever know. Well, that may be the case. No one will ever know until you get to litigation and
Exactly.
discovery becomes an issue. And then guess what? All those things in the dark comes to light. And then you don't have those secrets are uncovered. And we're asking that you reimburse in some way your wife or your husband for the indiscretions that you made during the marriage. Perhaps you're secreting money and taking that money and sifting it off and giving it to family members because you think that if you get rid of it and it doesn't exist, that your spouse would never get their hands on it, you know? But I mean, these are it's we play detective work as lawyers.
I know, honey, that's you and I have talked about that with the subpoenas, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the biggest part is that people, what frustrates me, and I get because I was there too. I didn't know anything before I started my second divorce. Like I knew nothing about the law. I was oblivious. Now I've learned a lot because of my experience, but it's so hard for me to listen to someone at the beginning of a divorce or in the middle of the divorce, right? Where they're just like, but they're taking this and they're doing this and they're doing, I'm like, okay, relax. You can still get the information that you need. And whether it's through discovery and you're lucky enough to get the discovery back, or you need to go the subpoena route, the information's there. You can get it. And it is funny because I became a detective as well. I mean, I didn't have an attorney at first, not because I didn't want to, but it's because I couldn't afford it. So I had to do all the investigation through the subpoenas. And all of a sudden this whole story unraveled that I didn't even know, like all this fraud. And I was like, what do I do with this? But what I learned was it gave me power. Empowered me with the right information in order for me to settle for what I was comfortable with. And so, yeah, people, is that a conversation that you have with these people that are like frantically, oh my gosh, they're losing all of this. They're moving this money, I'm like, money has trails. There's always a way to trace down the money. And the money tells a story.
Generally, unless you're an entrepreneur that gets paid in cash or a barber, in those conversations look very different. Those cash jobs where or tips and when money maybe doesn't have a trail, those conversations I find are harder to have than when you actually have like deposits and accounts.
Yeah. And some people, and of course I have a lot of people on the podcast that are forensic accountants. And they, they can trace some of that stuff and they can do stuff with small businesses that other people don't know even to look for it. So what do you find probably is the most rewarding thing for you in your practice?
Watching people transform. Usually people approach divorce. There's a roller coaster state of emotions that people go through. And perhaps sometimes it's denial. Sometimes it is vengeance. Sometimes it is anger, frustration, and watching people come just to a sense of peace where they have accepted the future as it is, but understand that there is a plan moving forward that they can execute because it's been explained to them and it's clear. Because the law is complex, right? Like, I don't know who taught lawyers or who came up with this idea that the wording and the phrases and the verbiage, right, should be well beyond the scope of what a lay person can understand. It's not regular language and lingo that we use in the courtroom, but there are ways to break it down in manageable pieces to where my clients feel accomplished. That's what makes me happy. Like they understood the process from beginning to end. They never had to guess what's coming next because I tell them what we're going to do. I do it. And then I remind them what we've done. The next step is to tell them, what do you have to look forward so that you're never guessing? and you understand exactly what's going to go on for you moving forward. You have to realize lawyers, we're fighting for people's either their quantity of life, right? If you are a criminal defense attorney, or someone you're, fighting over like a do not resuscitate clause in probate court or some type of guardianship court, or their quality of life. So we're talking about our personal injury attorneys that are fighting for victims, our family law attorneys that are here saying, now, wait a minute, like what does a healthy co-parenting aspect look like? Or listen, you don't have kids. You were married for like 15 years, but you've acquired all of these assets from someone who's been managing our whole estate. Now what? Where does that leave me? And I thought I was going to retire next year. But does this mean that I'm going to have to continue working well beyond my intended retirement age? We're talking about quality of life here. So this is important to people. We do really hard work in a real hard venue for people that just want peace.
Yeah, I love that you said that the transformation that people go through when they come into your office and they're chaotic, and then you have a blueprint. You use that word blueprint to be able to build that blueprint so that it gives them confidence and peace going through it, and so that they can move on with confidence in their divorce. And again, I'm just going to put another plug in if you want to get the 100 divorce terms, because you'll be able to talk to your attorney so much more. I came up with this idea because I realized that it is another language, the language that the court system uses. And that's why this is navigating the legal process, because if you don't understand the terminology or the language, you won't know the power of each one of these things, and being able to understand when the attorney is like, hey, we need to do a motion. Well, what's a motion? I don't know what that is. I don't even know what a subpoena is. I don't know what, guardian ad litems are, what, those kind of things. And just the more educated that they get. So, hey, Tess, I want to really thank you for your time. I always am so grateful for the people that are in this space. I know it's not easy. I know it's stressful. I know, I was telling someone a while ago, I was at a conference and there's this attorney that was a family law attorney. She retired, but she was sitting there and she overheard me say, yeah, attorneys have a life too. And she's like, yes, Becky, you give us a voice. I'm an advocate for the and the family law attorneys. It's just stressful. But I have a last question for you, if it's okay.
Absolutely.
And I love to finish my shows this way because it's beautiful, the responses that I get. But what does divorcing strong mean to you?
Sure. I think divorcing strong is feeling empowered, that you understand, number one, the process that you're going through because you've hired a lawyer that, number one, that you can reach, you can get on the phone, but that takes the time to explain it to you in a patient way that doesn't make you feel as if like you have gotten in over your head. That's divorcing strong. But let me tell you something about this life and through grade school. No one teaches us about relationships or communication. And in this life, we are taught how to survive, get a job, pay bills, put food on the table. We're taught how to survive. But something about divorcing strong is, how do you thrive? It's not just surviving the situation and circumstance or playing the cards that you've been dealt. It's how do you figure out how to win with the hand? Yeah, you always bet on the house. The house always wins. And that's what divorcing strong is about.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love asking people that question because that is the whole point, going from weak to strong, be better than bitter. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your talent, and getting into this industry. I mean, it's important to be a teacher too, by the way. And now you're in a place where you can protect families, their interests in a lot of different areas, and children at the same time legally through the legal system. So thank you so much, Tess. So appreciate you being on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Becky. I appreciate you.
Yes, and make sure if you're in Texas and you need to reach out to Tess, you have a case there, you have some questions, she does do consultations. So her little website's there and all the information in the show notes. So thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of Divorcing Strong. I'm Becky Sampson, been the host with Tess House. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much, you guys. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Divorcing Strong podcast. This episode is sponsored by Only Subpoenas, where we make subpoenas simple, powerful, and 100% compliant. If you're having a hard time getting the information you need to settle for a fair and equitable divorce, let us help you. Whether you're an attorney or you're navigating divorce on your own, subpoenas can uncover the truth, secure the evidence you need, and level the playing field. To see how we can help, book an appointment by visiting our website at onlysubpoenas.com.